have it. After Clause 69, Amendment 84, Baroness Fox of Buckley.
Last week I received a message after I'd spoken in a debate, and it said, it's from somebody I know quite well, it said, quote, "I'm currently in the final stages of trying to buy a leasehold flat and I'm pretty worried about what I'm getting myself into. The freeholder, a housing association, has increased the service charge by 27% since I had my offer accepted, and there seems to be nothing to stop them doing so again. They claim they just do it to cover costs. I get the impression this is a rentier's business pretending to be something else." The aim of this amendment, which in some ways might appear to be quite glib, is that actually everyone should stop pretending that it's something that it isn't, which is when you become a leaseholder, you are not actually buying a home. And I want to clarify that to say so is mis-selling. I'm of course hopeful that the government will accept my earlier amendment for a sunset clause on leasehold, that commonhold will become the new normal. But in the meantime, those buying homes on leasehold should be frankly told what they are buying into. I've noticed in this committee and the wider debate on the issue that often developers and big freehold defensively retort when those of us complain about treatment of leaseholders, well, you bought a leaseholder property, you knew the rules, why didn't you read the small print? It's a kind of form of victim blaming. You know, this is what leasehold is. But this is disingenuous, and I want to tackle this by regulating the marketing of residential leasehold properties so that they are sold as lease rentals, which was in fact a key recommendation of the leasehold report by the House of Commons Levelling Up Housing and Communities Committee, published in March 2019. I want to stress that buying leasehold property, when you buy a leasehold property, you think you're buying a house or entering into the home-owning classes. And that's how it's sold to us by politicians. So, for example, the DLUHC spokesperson defending the mess that is shared ownership stated, "Shared ownership has a vital role to play in helping people onto the property ladder. And since 2010, we've delivered 158,800 new shared ownership homes." The whole idea is, when you actually buy into shared ownership or you buy a leasehold flat, that you are joining the property owning classes. You think of it as that aspiration to own your own home and all that entails. That is what you are buying. And I think that we need to consider this ideology of home ownership when, and I thought about it particularly when watching an excellent lecture entitled "Making Our Homes Our Own" by Professor Nicholas Hopkins, a law commissioner for property, family and trust law. When you're renting somewhere to live, there's a sense of dependence on a landlord. You have no conception that you own the property. It's all very clear. I remember my father saying to me, "It's time to grow up and stop renting," and eventually I bought a flat. It wasn't until I was 40, mind, and it was a leasehold flat, and I thought, oh, I'm all grown up now, I'm taking responsibility, no landlord, it's up to me. Little did I know. When you buy a home, you think, though, that you are buying independence, autonomy and control. It, yes, provides greater security and stability and permanence, but I think as what Professor Hopkins calls the X-factor benefits, in terms of this idea that you buy this property, that you make it your own, you personalise it. Do you remember those symbolic new front doors that everybody put on their council flats after Right to Buy came in? It was kind of like, I've bought mine, so I've got a red door. It meant something. I'm not saying that in any sniffy way. It did mean something. It was about saying, I'm going to take pride in maintaining this, I'm going to improve it, you're in control over your house, how and when to dispose it, and so on. And so you have taken that grown-up responsibility. And the notion that there is no landlord controlling your home is very important, but it is an illusion in relation to leasehold. When the Commons Housing Select Committee did an inquiry into leasehold back in 2018 to 2019, they, quote, found a system which stacked the odds in the favour of developers, freeholders and managing agents, leaving leaseholders with all the responsibilities and without matching safeguards to protect them. Leaseholders were too often treated not as homeowners or customers, but as a source of steady profit. And I think that's exactly what it feels like. They don't tell you that, the estate agents, though, that the leasehold form of home ownership means that while you pay for the maintenance of your home, you have no control over the amount, quality or cost of work undertaken. The whole experience is disempowering. You're being done to, the object of other people's decisions. I wanted to use the example, when Storm Eunice battered Britain a few years ago, the roof of one lady's top floor, 2-bedroom leasehold flat started to leak badly. She said rain was coming down through the light sockets and through the switches. Now, most homeowners would try to get someone in as soon as possible to identify the leaks and get the problem fixed urgently via a claim on their building insurance. But their house is a storm, there's leaks, it's dangerous, you get it fixed properly. But because Liz's flat is leasehold, she had to rely on a managing agent to sort things out. Countless calls and emails later, and she couldn't get anything done. Eventually, the water stopped, they stemmed the flow, but it failed. Then mould started to grow in the increasingly sodden flat, and Liz had to move out. More pleading with the managing agent to find suitable temporary accommodation. Eventually, they did, albeit to a dodgy area in which Liz said she didn't feel safe. I thought that when the noble lady, the minister earlier, was saying that one of the reasons why she was nervous about giving consultation rights to leaseholders in relation to local authorities was that the leaseholders might hold up works and that somehow the freeholders be rushing to get them done. I mean, is there a historic example of that ever happening? Because generally what has happened is that leaseholders are in a rush to sort out problems on their own home and would know how to do so. But the freeholders are less, or their managing agents are less inclined to. So mis-selling leasehold properties as property ownership, in my opinion, is a con in so many ways. People who save hard for a deposit, who budget and work hard to get a mortgage, see their new home as a financial asset, a home to pass on. But again, as Professor Hopkins explains, quote, the effect of leasehold in essence is to put financial value in the landlord's hands at the expense of the leaseholders. And the more a person's home is used as a financial asset to benefit the landlord, the less it is an investment for the individual. The more a leaseholder's money is providing an investment for themselves, for their future, their family, the next generation. So for leaseholders, the question is, would they buy that flat if, in fact, their home was actually a source of investment for someone else, a profit for someone else, and not even something they could easily pass on to their family? When you look in an estate agent's window, there's two sections, for sale and for rent. There's no mention under for sale that there's a two-tier system of property, that leaseholders don't get sold their homes outright, but they're tenants of a freeholder who owns the land. Would-be buyers may hear their solicitor mumble the words leasehold, but the implications are not spelt out. So, for example, Natalie Walton explained in one article that I was reading that when she bought her new-build 2-bedroom flat in Wakefield for $1,500, she had no idea that on top of her $1,600 annual service charge, uncapped, her ground rent would be increased every 20 years. And she said this, it's not easy when you're a first-time buyer to understand all the implications of ground rents. I had a copy of the lease, but the solicitor didn't go through it with me. So yes, I do know that the paperwork exists, but without signposting it and a regulated demand for honesty and frankness through the buying and selling process, many more people will be hoodwinked until we actually get rid of leasehold for good. Now, the Minister might reply that the government's own How to Lease guide has been updated, and I was delighted to read that it had, because before it was very unclear, now it's got clarity and honesty, and it says This is the government's own website. When you buy a leasehold property, you do not become the owner of the property. You acquire the right to occupy it for the amount of time that is remaining on the lease. And if the property you were interested in is a leasehold, this means you, as the buyer, i.e. the leaseholder, will be signing a contract which grants you the right to occupy a property for a fixed number of years, i.e. the lease. The building structure and any common parts will be owned by the freeholder, who is likely to be your landlord. Well, hurrah for that. For once, the government totally clear. But who in the public reads a government UK publications website before they buy a house or a flat? It just doesn't happen. So what I'm suggesting is that this definition should become the standard for well-advertised description used by estate agents, freehold and development sellers and solicitors. I'm not suggesting estate agents all go off and do degree courses, as somebody did recently, but I do think updating them so that they know what leasehold means would be helpful. This amendment ensures that this will happen until we at last move away from this iniquitous tenure and common hold becomes the norm. In the meantime, at least let's be honest.
Does the noble lady wish to move her amendment? Right, in which case, amendment proposed after clause 69, insert the new clause marketing of residential leasehold property as printed on the marshalled list.